Today I'm in the eastern Sierras of California, and I've come up here because it's just really hot everywhere and I was trying to escape the heat. So I'm around 4,000 or 5,000 foot elevation right now, and it's not too bad. It's like 80, 85 degrees. But I've come up to this area called the Buttermilk Boulders, which is pretty famous if you're a rock climber, but for photography I haven't really seen any work out of here. Now, one thing you don't see in these videos is I spend about 80% of the time scouting, and I don't really video that because it's kind of boring. I'm just kind of focused on finding compositions. So before I got to camp, I already spent a few hours scouting, and I found an interesting scene that I'm gonna go and check out and hopefully photograph this evening. So I'm just getting my film here packed up. I'm going to take some Kodak E100 and some Portra 160. I'm still very much like learning what E100 looks like. I shot I think a couple sheets in the redwoods on my last trip, but I'm really familiar with Portra, so I'm just going to shoot the two side by side and compare. These boulders in front of me are massive, and I'm trying to reduce the size a little bit just to fit them in the frame. And I think the 210 feels about right. I like a little bit of negative space, you know, around the edges. I don't want it to feel too tight. So to be honest, it'd be nicer around like 180, 200. But my 150 is back at the truck, and this feels pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. So in this composition, I have this boulder here on the left and the boulder here on the right. It's obvious that they've split apart, but it was much more obvious in that harsh afternoon light because this sharp line on this left boulder was just so much more pronounced. But I think I'm still going to make an exposure just because I'm out here, and I'd rather make that decision when I get home. All right, I'm going to close my lens up. Stop my aperture down. Let's go to f45. That should be sufficient. Okay, I'm gonna load in some Portra 160. I know this film better, and the dynamic range is a little tricky. So all I really have to do is meter off that gray portion of the rock there. And because your light meter sees the world in 18% gray. So if you can find something nice and gray in your scene, that'll pretty much give you your base exposure. And then you can check your shadows and your highlights to make sure they fall within a reasonable range, which puts f45 right around 10 seconds. I'm kind of at that in between. So what I'm going to do is open up my aperture to 32 and 2/3 of a stop, or f40, whatever you want to call it. And that puts it around 8 seconds. And 8 seconds on Portra is 15 seconds. Just kind of waiting for that wind to stop. You'll notice that's a reoccurring theme. I feel like I'm constantly waiting on the wind to stop. This year has been it's been windy like most of the year. All right, so it's just got a little darker since my last reading. And I'm gonna open up another third And same exposure, 15 seconds. All right, well, just a single sheet of film, but curious to see how that one will look. But for now, I'm just gonna get things packed up, head back to camp, and I'll see you in the morning. Well, that sunrise this morning was really something special, and I just kept thinking, like, my younger self would have been freaking out trying to find a photograph. But to be honest, nowadays I don't really like bright, vivid colors during sunrise, sunset. Doesn't really do it for me anymore. So it was nice to kind of sit back and watch it, but I'm more excited about finding subjects and composing them right, and then just waiting for the light to happen, rather than just reacting to light and trying to find like a bush or something to put in the frame. So I think today I'm gonna spend the time and explore the buttermilk area, which is where I'm at right now, a little bit more. And if I can't find anything here, I'm gonna head over to the Mammoth Lakes area. So that's the plan. I'm gonna get camp packed up and get on the trail and hopefully find a photograph for tomorrow morning. Well, it's around 7 o'clock now, and I spent probably 6 hours just driving around trying to find a location to photograph this evening. And I skipped the buttermilk area. I didn't really find anything there that I was interested in, and I've come up here to the Mammoth Lakes region, and the wind today has just been like nonstop, so I've really had a hard time hiking around and trying to find subjects that'll work in this windy condition. So I think I found something that might work pretty well, and it's going to be a panoramic. So I'm just packing up my 4x10. I'm going to head out there and start working on the composition. I just exposed a single sheet of Kodak Ektar on the scene here, and I initially had it set up further back and I had a little more emphasis on the sky, but then all the clouds decided to leave, so I brought my camera further forward and had a little more foreground in the shot, and hopefully that worked out okay. So, but I'm gonna pack things up here and call it a night, so it'll be an early one tomorrow morning.
Definitely a chilly morning. I think it's like 23 degrees is what my car said. So I wasn't prepared for that. You know, it's the end of June. Summer solstice is in like 2 days from now. And I was expecting it to be in the 40s or 50s in the morning, but 23 is a little chilly. So it is a 6-second exposure on Portra. Well, I'm back home now, and that was actually a really fun trip. And I'm going to call that a wrap on my first season here on YouTube. This will be the 10th episode, and at the end of each season, what I'd like to do is answer the 3 most common questions that I've received either in the comments, people reached out to me through Instagram, and I also got some emails as well. So let's get into it. So the first question that I receive probably almost on every video, I would say, is what kind of tripod and tripod head am I using? So this is a Gitzo 5 series, which is their beefiest tripod that they make. And it's actually model number GT5562 GTS. And it's also their tallest tripod they make. So I think it extends up to like 10 feet or something, which is really useful if you're on uneven terrain, or if you want to get a higher perspective, you can use a step stool. And I bought this tripod probably 10 years ago, so it's definitely served me well, and I've had 0 issues with it. So I definitely recommend this tripod for an 8x10. Now, as far as the tripod head, I've gone through quite a bit of heads. I've had a ball head, a really right stuff BH55, I think is what they call it. I had that for a year or 2, and I found it to be a little sloppy when I'm, with an 8x10 because it's so heavy. Then I moved over to the Arca Swiss Cube, which was expensive, but a really nice head, and it had a quick release system. But what I found with that head is when I'm looking, like say down, like this, it would actually slip. So I knew I was at the weight capacity of that head. And then I got into ULF. I was shooting a 16x20 camera for a while, doing contact prints. And I bought this Reese tripod head and sticks. And that was actually my favorite tripod head. But once I sold my 16x20, I couldn't keep the tripod. It was just too heavy for the 8x10. It didn't really compact down far enough either. It was something I was like willing to deal with 60 by 20 because it's not something that I'm hiking with. But as far as the 8 by 10, I really wanted a carbon fiber tripod, which I already had. And sure enough, this company called Luland, they're out of China. They started selling these on eBay, and this is called the TH150. And the difference between the Luland and the Reese is the Reese, there's a screw underneath that you have to loosen to pan the head. So because of that, it's sort of integrated into their tripods. The head goes with the tripod. This head you can stick on pretty much any tripod, and there's a separate panning locking feature here. So that kind of sealed the deal for me once I found this on eBay. It's got tilts that goes up, full 90, locks down, and it locks down firm. Like I've never had. I've even carried like a Toyo 810G. I don't know if you're familiar with that camera, but it's a large rail camera. Probably, I would say, the heaviest 8x10 camera ever made. And I've carried it with this head over my shoulder hiking, and it didn't move. So I know it's super solid, and I really do recommend it to people shooting 8x10. And I think it was around 450 bucks. So not terrible. Definitely cheaper than the Arca Swiss Cube. But another nice feature, it has this spring mechanism on the screw there. So let's say, grab my camera here. You can hear it just sort of click into position. That's when you know the screw's in the right spot. And it really doesn't take long to get it on there. I mean, it's just as quick as a quick release system. And I think since I purchased this head about 6 years ago, they've come out with a quick release system, but I've been totally happy with just screwing my camera in there. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Now, this is a question I've received quite a bit through YouTube, and I did answer it in the comments, but I just kind of want to go over why I have it on there. And the question is, what's that written on the side of your camera? So this is just like P-touch tape, and these are the reciprocity times for the films I use. So I have Portra, which is 160 and 400. It's both the same. And then I have Ektar and E100 on this side. And what I found is if I'm photographing in low light, it's typically during sunrise or sunset, and the light's moving really quickly. So it was handy to have this information right there, because I didn't have to, sit there on the phone and try to find the app and scroll through it. This was just much easier. So I do recommend that, or at least putting it in like a notepad that you always have on you. But yeah, that's that. What's the last question? So the last question that I receive, and it's probably the most common question I get asked, either through email or Instagram, or I think people mentioned it on the YouTube channel as well, is can we get a walk around or a tour of your G-Wagon? So I thought about answering it in this video, but to be honest, it was too long. So I think what I'm gonna do is come out with a separate tour of my G-Wagon and do a little walk around and explain sort of how I have it set up and why I have it that way. But also, the G-Wagon is undergoing some major changes in the near future, so I thought it'd be a good time to answer that question before all the changes happen. So hopefully that answered your questions in a little more detail. And I'm sure the next question is gonna be, why are you in a wood shop? So I am a professional woodworker, and just the lighting in here was a little better than in my house. And I also work in the film industry, so trying to balance everything while doing YouTube has been a little bit of a challenge, but I am really looking forward to season 2. So thanks for watching, liking, subscribing, and I look forward to seeing you soon.